Good morning, party people. Sarah Walker here, founder of the Sisters Enchanted, where it's our mission to make magic mainstream. And I'm bringing you day 3 of our EnWitch Your Life class. So I am just pulling up our documents. Good morning, Christina. I'll see you later. I was just shoving down some breakfast and don't have our printables up yet, and I'm seeing I have all these notifications I haven't tended to. Good morning, Angie. So let me pull these things up and we'll get to talking. So today we are talking about, hi Emily, we are talking about, what are we talking about? We're talking about sacred space, and we're going to look at day 3 of our Color Yourself Witchy printable. So I'm waiting for my computer to boot up, but in the meantime we can start talking about sacred space while this works, because I don't need the printable for that. I forget what's on day 3 of Color Yourself Witchy, so I do need to see that. Okay, so sacred space. Some housekeeping things. Make sure to participate in the homework threads, because we will pick some winners and I'll send you some swag at the end of the week. If I owe you swag from previous winning things, I promise you it's going to get out. I am so behind on mailing things, but I have my stepmother and father coming this weekend, so they can entertain my children for 3 days while I pack swag and mail it. So participate in the homework threads. They're in the announcements section. And with the emails that have been going out each day, I've been linking the previous day's printable. So if you missed any days and you're like, oh, can you email me day 1? It's right there in your fresh email. So you didn't miss anything. It's all, I'm collecting it in the email for you. All right. So I think that's all the housekeeping stuff. Oh, housekeeping bit number 3, if this is the 3rd item, we do have 3 spots open in our Salem, Massachusetts adventure in May. If anybody wants to come, you can email me and I'll send you the information about that. It's 4 nights, 2 dinners, classes, cool stuff. Come hang out with us. Anywho, all right, sacred space. So one of the things, if you scroll through this group, that you'll see lots and lots and lots of amazing photos of are people's sacred spaces. I'm just gonna try to fix this. People's sacred spaces, and some of them are like beautiful and glorious and have statues and plants and like so many and like water features, and they're so amazing. And so one of the things that can feel kind of stressful, I feel like, is like living up to that. Like my sacred space does not look like that. and that's okay. So if you've been listening, or if you watched me, if you know me from before, you know I have 2 little kids. I also have 2 very nosy cats. And I have a husband who's not exactly magically inclined. So I don't have myself like a giant sacred space. I have this little area here. In which I do, if I'm like recording meditations or things like that for our classes, I'll change this up sometimes, or seasonally sometimes I'll change it up. But in terms of like big sacred spaces, I don't typically have them. Oh good, now my computer's frozen. So let me tell you some things, some like cheats around creating sacred space. So one of the things that you can do, if like me, you don't have tons of room to create this big sacred space, and we'll talk about 2 things that you can put on your sacred space. But hold on, I gotta turn this thing off. One of the things that you can do is make little sacred spaces that you can move around the house with you. So Stephanie says my cats get everything on top of my tarot. Yes, that's adorable arseholes. Yes, mine too. My cats get into everything, and my kids. I would probably describe my kids the same way. They always have my crystals and tarot cards, and it's very annoying. So you can do little mini sacred spaces. So one thing that I like to do, especially at the change of seasons or at a festival or Sabbath, is actually take, and I usually bring one to show, but I don't have one here right now, but is take one of those little salad plates, we call them here in the US. So they're like the small plates, you know, and I use that as a little space that I can put right on my kitchen counter or in the middle of my dining room table, or like we have this, where our sofa is, we have like a long table across from it that has like all the media stuff on it, you know, and so I could put it there. But just a little plate, and I'll usually put on it something to represent the 4 elements, a candle, maybe a tarot card to work with whatever it is I'm working with. If it is a Sabbath or festival and I have an oracle card that represents it, I'll put that there. If I'm working on doing some kind of spell work or abundance work or love or whatever it is, either an oracle card or a tarot card, and I just use one of those little plates, and literally I just put the card. If I want to write like an intention or affirmation, I put that on there, and you can sprinkle herbs, and it's just this little thing, and you can carry it wherever you go. So if you don't have space and you see all these photos of people with their big sacred spaces and like coffee tables situated, and you're like, that does not work for me. It's okay, it doesn't work for me either. So I like to do that because I can move it around wherever I am. And it's small, and like if I put it up high enough, nobody can get to it. So Emily says, my children rearrange my crystals whenever I get them. Yes, find Barbie dolls within my spaces. Yes, I hear you. My daughter loves to come this office area that you're looking at here. This is my office area. It used to be what was our living room. We changed it, so now it's a bedroom. We have a very small house, so we've been doing some things to try to make more space, which is not working. So when they come in here, it's like a free-for-all. So Liv says, to Emily, can you display them in a lockable glass cabinet? Like totally a thing also. I do have like a cabinet. It's like an old hutch cabinet thing, and it's got a big surface. So I keep a lot of my crystal, like my bowls of crystals up there, and like incense and flowers and dried flowers and things like that. I keep on the top of that, and then nobody can reach it. Well, my cats, if they're feeling frisky. They're pretty old now though. Anyway, so the little plate is a cool trick. So Monisha uses a little fold-out table constantly and have to keep her son off of it. Yeah, exactly. Which is why I like little plates, because you can literally put them anywhere. Another thing that I do, if I'm doing like if it's nice out, if it's nice weather. So I live in Connecticut in the U.S. So it's, we definitely have 4 seasons here. It's not always warm enough to be outside comfortably. So if I want to do Liv is genius at 8:30 in the morning. If I want to do like a ritual outside, right? But I don't want to be outside for very long because it's cold or whatever is the reason. But I want to set everything up, right? But like I want to go outside and do a full moon thing, or I want to do like a bonfire ritual, but I want to like be in and out. So Lee says that she uses a wooden tray for portable altar space. Yes, that's exactly what I was just going to say. So I have, not as fancy as a wooden tray. Wooden tray would be nicer, but I have this. It's just a plastic like cutting board. It's pretty big. It's bigger than 9 by 12. Like I can hide behind it. I'm not sure how big this is. It's pretty big though. But I just put a nice like cloth over it, and I can change the cloth, and it's big, so I can put like, I can actually do, if I wanted to, say I wanted to do like some oil mixing as part of my ritual, or some herb like crushing and blending, or I wanted to put a whole journal on this, as part of my ritual, and I wanted to write something, I can put it's pretty big, so I can put everything on it and move it around. Or if I'm doing like a hell of a crystal grid for manifesting, crystal grids too, if you want to set a crystal grid, but you're like, everybody touches it, everybody gets to it, something like this, and you can put it like wherever nobody is going to get to it, and lock it up, and then bring it out when you want to sit with it. So I like this because it's, like I said, it's big, but it's flat. I can tuck it away. I do, like I said, I live in a really small house, so I can, store it away, and I don't have to leave it out. But so sacred spaces, if you see these photos and you're like really stressed to the max about your sacred space, don't be. You don't need a big one. You can though, if you have the space and the ability. I know some of our community's members, one who I was able to meet in person, she lives alone. She has like a whole meditation room, and it's just one giant sacred space room. And I'm like, that's amazing, and I want to come live there. But, I don't have a room just for that. So let's see here. Stephanie has to put barbed wire around sacred spaces if you want to get free. Right? I hear you. Mine are 11 now, my cats. They still jump, but they're a little less frisky. They don't, I think they look at it to jump up, and they're like, man, that seems like a lot of work. And they don't. So Lee says, I love the idea for workspace and ritual. Yeah, which is why I like this, because it's really big. So I do use like other little trays and things, and baskets. Baskets are great. Another thing you can do for cats and pets, you can use a box. So this one just has a bunch of crystals in it right now, but you can use a box, And this way you can close it up, right? And then when you're ready to sit with it, or say you have it in your, like, you have it on your kitchen counter and you close it because you have a pesky, I know cats on kitchen counters is controversial and, you know, can be gross. But say you have jumpers and you're like, they even get on my counters, right? You can close this, but then when you're in there like cooking or preparing lunches or whatever you're doing and you want to open it just so you can see it and kind of get into that energy, you can, and then you can close it up or put it like, you know, wherever that space is. And you can put in there like your thing that represents the elements. You can even have a little votive candle. You can have an electric votive candle. So there is something to be said for working with actual fire and an actual candle. But if you're traveling, if you travel a lot, you're in hotels a lot or whatever, a little electric votive candle sort of thing, or what are those tea lights? The little tea light is the word I'm trying to find. Anything like that you can put in here, and then you can just close it up when you don't want anybody to touch it. So you can totally get crafty with your sacred spaces. It doesn't have to be this big elaborate thing. So yeah, and you can have more than one sacred space too. So you can have sacred space, for example, I usually have a little, the little plate trick. I usually have one of those going for like love and peace and grounding and negative energy deflecting in my house, because I think I mentioned before, my husband is kind of a negative Nancy. I try to be really positive. We're both fire signs. We're both very independent people, like 2 seriously independent people. And we have a very feisty, independent 4-year-old, and we have a 1-year-old. So we need all of the rose quartz and like black tourmaline we can get in this house. But so I usually have like a little space that has some dark, like some black crystals, some rose quartz, maybe like a pink candle, or one that I've anointed with. I use rose essential oils, so expensive. So I use like rose hydrosol or like a flower essence or something. Hot tip, rose is really expensive. You can buy rose hydrosol, which is not as expensive. Or I'll keep like a little bottle of it on that space, and I'll spray it for some love in the air. But so I'll have one of those little things like pretty much constantly in our kitchen area. And then sometimes in my work area, I'll have like a little money space. So you can have more than one sacred space depending on what it is that you're working with. At the center of our dining room table, I try to have a something for whatever season we're in, but you know, usually gets destroyed between the kids and their toys and things like that. I try. Yeah, so rose hydrosol for the win. So let's see what's going on. So you can have different sacred spaces though. Back to my so my sister Anna, she has little sacred spaces everywhere. It's like a kids. I actually like don't bring my kids over there because I'm like they're just going to destroy everything. Amisha says they have 97-cent quarter clothes out Walmart. I use those to give it a fresh look when I feel prompted. Ashley is going. Jennifer says that she has a small sacred space in every room. Yeah, and like in your bathroom, a really cool thing to have in your bathroom is a little sacred space for confidence and self-love first thing in the morning. So if you can have just a little area where you have some like rose quartz and some clear quartz crystals, or whatever crystal makes you feel really amazing. Or if you're working on confidence, some yellow crystals for that solar plexus boost area. And you can actually, like, if you use makeup, you can charge that up there, or just have some affirmations right there that you kind of pull one and read it. You look in the mirror and you're like, I am the bomb.com. And you just have it like ready to go. That can be cool too. So you can have little sacred spaces everywhere for sure. Let's see here. Emily wants to just put baby gates or playpens around our sacred spaces instead of our children. Yes. And the box is a good idea too. Let's see here. Yes, boxes. I have a few of them. Christina's daughter's unstoppable. My son too. He's a climber. We had to take our kitchen chairs out of the kitchen recently, the dining area, because he was standing on the back of them. So Stephanie has 6 spaces at home, 1 at work and 1 in my purse. Yes. So Renee has one set up for the Sabbath, and then your altar for everything else is portable. Yeah. Mary uses rose all the time. Paula has sacred spaces and altars everywhere. And Dawn makes her own rose water, which is nice to use. Yeah. So, okay, so let's talk about that, the word altar versus sacred space. My computer is still not working, and since I'm talking to you on my phone, I can't pull up the printable on my phone. So hopefully my computer gets its act together. So you'll hear the term altar, and you'll hear sacred space, or whatever. It's the same thing. Some people don't like to call it an altar because it just feels weird for them. They call it a sacred space. So either way, but sacred space and altar can be the same thing. Like, it's really just an interchangeable term. Kimberly has a few in different spots. So some other things you might want to think about. You can charge up your sacred space just like you would charge any of your other tools or anything at all. You can charge it up, like you can actually put like some bigger crystals. Like I have this big quartz. So if you had like a coffee table size space, you could put like big quartz crystals around it. You can cleanse it with by smudging or with some selenite. You treat it like a tool, just like you would any other tool, right? So you can charge it, you can cleanse it. If it's portable, you can take it out under the full moon or the sunshine, depending if you want solar energy or lunar energy. You can take it, when you take it apart and set it, I get this question a lot. So when you set your sacred space, I think the most important thing that you do is set it with intention. So even if that's just thinking like my little love altar, my negative energy deflecting altar in the kitchen, which is the central area of our house. I usually just, when I place things on it, I think I live in a peaceful, loving home. And I place the things on there. If it's for a festival or Sabbath, I'll say like for Samhain coming up, we honor the dark months. I honor my ancestors. I invite the dark months. I invite the shadow in, and just kind of like pause your to-do list and intentionally place things. When you are taking your sacred space apart, you can simply, like, whatever feels, if you just take it apart and you don't do anything, you're not gonna like jinx yourself for life or anything like that. But you can thank your sacred space for doing its work for you. So if it's like a manifesting altar or something, you could thank it for that energy that it brought. If it's something to represent the Sabbath or the season or the festival, you can thank it for helping you connect to the natural rhythms of the world. So something that can be really quick. You can sit with intention and kind of like focus on it and put your hands on it. However you like channel your energy into things, but you can simply just thank it too and take your things apart. So let's see here. Paula has a small antique plates that I use for little altars to keep things together. I think that's what it's supposed to say. Bert is watching Room on the Broom with your granddaughter. She did a spell, iggity ziggity. Yes, we do that spell at our house. I think we've read Room on the Broom every night for the past 3 weeks. And it's a room on the broom for a frog like me. I could recite it to you verbatim. She does do a spell. My daughter walks around doing that spell. Anyway, we've watched it a few times too, but we read the book every single night. My kid's obsessed. We have this one picture book. I'll try to find it, and it's called I Want to Be a Witch, and it's a Halloween book, and it's just a little picture book, and the girl wants to be a witch, but she doesn't want to have a long crooked nose. She doesn't want to be green. She doesn't want to have a stinky old cauldron, like she's like baking cupcakes in the kitchen. And then at the end, it's her mom is on a broom, like very Bewitched style, and the little girl, and she says, when I grow up, I want to be a witch just like my mom, or something like that. It's the last page of the book, and when I bought it, I hadn't read it. I thought it was so cute. Or I'm gonna be a witch just like mom, or something like that. It's a really cute story. Anyway, okay. So Jessica's saying, off subject, I'm new to all this. When do you charge your crystals? You can charge your crystals whenever you want. The most common times are the full moon. The full moon is the most common time, but you can charge them. You can charge them under solar energy too, like at high noon. I just wouldn't leave them out too long because sometimes the sun will damage different ones, you know, and wash and like fade them. But you can charge them under solar energy. You can charge them under a full moon. You could charge them on a windowsill in an in-between space. If you're really into fairies or elemental energy like that, you can charge them at the seaside. But the most common time is the full moon. So yeah, it's like Kimberly says, you see the full moon is a grapevine. Yep, lots of full moons there. Let's see here. Leslie doesn't have a permanent altar yet. My cat has a tendency to climb on shelves with crystals and knickknacks. Will that throw off the energy of the altar if he does this? So I have had my cats and my kids screw up all of my sacred spaces, and typically, this is just, you know, my personal opinion, I just put them back together, you know, and I just like, think of it like a shirt that gets a hole in it. You don't need to throw the shirt away, you just need to stitch the hole back up, right? So I look at it like that. I look at it as just needing to stitch the energy back together. So I'll put it back, and I do a lot of energy work, like kind of holding my hands and envisioning my energy connecting. That's how so if you see me doing witchery in real life, I usually have my hands like faced either out towards like the altar space, and my sister calls it my witch pose, but she's like, I see you in your witch pose. Or I'll use my hands. And so I'll put it back and I kind of like stitch it back together. Some people use, this is a Marian seed quartz, but if you use like a crystal quartz point, here's one, and they'll like touch them, the pieces of your grid or your altar space all together, like you're actually stitching it together. And some people will do that. I use my hands and my own energy. So, you know, I don't feel like you have to. It's the same if you cast a circle, you create a circle, and you need to step out of the circle for some reason. You can kind of envision yourself like a tent, like zipping up, unzipping like a door, and kind of like step through it. And then when you come back in, close it back up and zip it back shut again. And then, you know, if all hell breaks loose in the other room while something happens and you need to escape quickly, you know, you don't have to start all over again. So, and Stephanie thinks that they're adding their own energy. Yeah, it's too, if you have pets and you're doing circle work, I get this question a lot, and they walk into it, that's totally cool. You don't have to like start over. You don't have to lock your animals out. They can come in. So Jessica wears a crystal necklace and can't really untie the string, but I'm outside a lot. Would that charge them? I know one crystal out of the 6. Yeah, so the thing about crystals is they work kind of, and I finally got my computer to work. So now we can talk about day 3 of Color Yourself Witchy too. Huzzah. So the thing about crystals is, much like your energy in your body, they only work if you're kind of like putting if you're putting the energy into making them work, right? So if you just buy a crystal, say, so I have this sodalite here. So if you buy sodalite and you're like, sodalite will help me speak my truth, my throat chakra is going to be amazingly clear. But you just buy this crystal and then you leave it on a shelf somewhere. It doesn't really work that way. The same as if you're like, you wake up today and you're like, I'm going to be so confident, but then you don't practice confidence. You never think about it again. Just the act of like purchasing the item or saying like, I'm going to eat healthy, but then you like go and shove your face with 6 donuts. That's not, you can't just say it. You can't just buy it and make it happen, right? So if you're outside with your necklace, I would just hold it for a second and like, just, even if it's 10 seconds, just take the second to like connect and be like, I see you, son. You're charging up my crystal. Thank you. Take that 1 second to do that, you know? And when you buy a crystal or any tool, you gotta like connect with the intent that you're going to use it for, and kind of make that spiritual, energetic connection with it. So yeah, there is a little more than just being. It's like basically saying I'm going to eat healthy, or like I'm going to lose 40 pounds. But you just say it, but you don't do anything about it. You have to like still do something. So I hope that answers that question in a silly way. So Bert, I do that when I'm doing a tarot read. I pick words out of the air with my pants. Crystals are my gig. Can't leave them without them, Crystal says. Hi, Jean. Yeah, so we've been on for about a half an hour, so I'd go back and watch it. Brianna says make sure to clear it before use. Yeah, so some people will say to cleanse your crystals before you use them of energies from the store, anybody who's handled them, anything like that. You know, my personal perspective is it's totally up to you. If you feel like it needs to be cleansed, you know, cleanse that bad boy. But, and same with tarot cards. I've definitely unwrapped a fresh tarot deck though, shuffled it and read with it right away without cleansing it or anything. But sometimes I feel like I need to cleanse it. So, you know, yeah, only 6 donuts, right? I'm having a real sugar problem lately, guys. Yesterday I was actually like a little bit nauseous because I hadn't had sugar all day. And I was like, I'm jonesing for the sugar. It was horrible. I was like, Sarah, you need some help. Somebody needs to rein you in. It's because I travel all the time, so I'm always eating crap food because I'm always on the road. Anywho, okay, so day 3 of Color Yourself Witchy, creating magical space, which is kind of what we already talked about. So let me just see what we talked about having small spaces. We talked about large spaces. We talked about changing things up, taking them apart. Yeah, I think I actually talked about most of this stuff already. So, yes, Beyonce says Venus retrograde, decadence. Yes. And Nick, who just joined, he's our astrologer. It's kind of handy having it's handy and not handy having an astrologer in your life because they tell you all the things that you're like, don't tell me that. But then you're like, I guess it's good you told me that. And he specifically told me to watch my eating habits like around now in November. Specifically told me that. And I was like, I'm fine. I don't need that advice. And here I am pounding like cookies and cake. So yeah. Okay. So let's talk about sacred space and how to, I did not talk about this part. So let's talk about how to leave sacred space up, how long to leave it up. So I get this question a lot too. How long should I leave my space up? Well, you can leave it for however long feels good to you. Like, till you feel like the work is done. You can also pick a time period in advance. So maybe you're working something for an entire lunar cycle. So you're going to leave it up the whole lunar cycle. So at the full or the new moon, you set it. And then on the last day of the lunar cycle, you dismantle it. Maybe you're doing it from new moon to full moon or full moon to new moon. You do it that way. Maybe it's a seasonal altar. So you leave it up for a whole season. Or like from one festival to another. Maybe you do it that way. Like Mabon to Samhain, maybe you have one just for that, whatever that looks like for you. So there's no right answer to that either. It is helpful when you set your sacred space to kind of know like, and then you're not feeling wishy-washy about it and you're like, all right, so this is we're going to work this, self-love magic for 13 days. And so you leave it up for 13 days and you work with it every day for 13 days. And then you can take it down, thank it, and take it down after that. So Nikki says, I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to travel like Nick told me I was going to do. Because I'm going to buy a witch house, Nikki, and you're going to travel to it frequently. Also, we're going to Ireland. So there's that. Last night I was messaging Nikki. I was like, Nikki, work trip to Ireland. Get yourself here. Okay, so I think we talked about everything in terms of sacred spaces. So what we've talked about the first day, we talked about having magical decluttering, creating space both emotionally and physically for your magic to be made. So if you have crap everywhere and you're trying to throw a nice magical altar space or sacred space in there, it's just like crap on top of crap, right? You need to clear some space. So we talked about that. We talked about having our thoughts in order, getting to the root of the problem, because like if you're trying to manifest money, right? But really you have horrible thoughts around money and you feel like you just have to be poor or you have to take care of everybody else so you never have money for yourself. You actually need to fix that before you're fixing the lack of money thing. So that's like what we talked about Monday is the thoughts, it's the clearing, the making space. On Tuesday, we talked about the elements and you can bring the elements into your sacred space as well. We talked about the elements and we talked about magical books. So you can incorporate your magical book into your sacred space or it can be a totally separate thing. It's up to you. If you have room for a whole fancy schmancy space situation or like a shelf on a bookshelf, you can put your magical book and some things right there on a bookshelf. That can be really cool. You can also do, Nick actually just dropped these off at my house, but these, you can have like little shelves. These have all these flower essences. My friend Julie makes these. But you can have like a little shelf like this and hang it on the wall and then put a little magical book on it or something. But so we talked about that yesterday, working with the elements. Today we talked about creating your sacred space. So over the next 2 days, we're going to talk about making your magical circle and your energy and using your energy to make some magic happen with all of this stuff we've talked about so far. So let's see here. So Manisha, 7-day candles have been a struggle of mine. So Manisha, is your struggle making them last 7 days? Like, what's your struggle exactly around that? So 7-day candles, what group was I talking about this in? I think our Enchanted Journey class, I was talking about this just last week. 7-day candles are meant to last 7 days, right? And you're supposed to let them burn completely for 7 days. Well, in this modern world, with kids and pets and fire hazards, that's not always safe. So the idea is that you let a 7-day candle, it's the glass, like tall candles, you let them burn. And if they burn faster than 7 days, like the faster they burn, so if it burns in 3 days, then your thing is closer to happening for you. If it takes longer, it's farther away and there's more work required. That is the idea with a 7-day candle. You can also get candles that have 7 knobs on them, and you can burn 1 knob a day over 7 days. So yeah, Manisha, let me know what your struggle is, and I can talk about that more. Crystal hasn't put another grid up since the last I've been slacking. I haven't done a solid crystal grid in a while. Maybe I'll do one for the Witch's New Year coming up. Angie loves Ireland. Hannah wants to go. I found out recently, and Sharon, one of our community members, let me know this. I live in Connecticut. So out of Providence, Rhode Island, which is, I use that airport all the time, there's flights to Ireland for like $200. I was like, it costs me more money to go visit family in Chicago. Why aren't I in Ireland like all the time? So now I'm just gonna go. I don't know when, but I'm gonna go. Michelle says, can you leave it up in general and add and take away during seasons? Yeah. So I typically have like the same sorts of things that are on mine. Like I use some of the same crystals all the time. Something that I pretty much always have are crystals like these. So I have a dark crystal to represent the shadow, a clear crystal to represent the like light external, and then I have the quartz with the black tourmaline in it to represent like the mix. So I typically always have like this, and then I change up other things to go with it. I have a really, this one's a really nice big one too. Ooh, fancy schmancy. And if you're not into crystal buying, I actually have these also that I just pulled right off the beach, the ocean. So I have black and white in this way too. So if you don't, some people don't like buying crystals. So you can find things in your natural environment. This is some coal that came out of the ocean. And this is like this weird shell situation. It has a name and I'm not sure what it is, but it does have an actual name. Stow Nick away. So Paula likes to leave my altar up for a full lunar cycle and also have at least one seasonal altar so that you can enjoy it longer. Beltane's your favorite because I always do fun crafts for it. Yeah, Beltane is a real fun one. And if you love fairies, Beltane is great for that. That shelf is just an old shelf. I think that came from a secondhand store. It was my mom's, then it was at my sister's house, and now it's at my house. So Manisha, they take so long. I find my patience is short, but they've lasted like a month. Yeah, so you could light it every day for 7 days, and what I would do is, like, I don't know, if you work during the day or whenever you work, if you come home from work, I would just light it and, like, let it be lit for a couple hours. And if that's, like, you can even light it in the morning and then light it again. So the idea, like I said, is to let them go. But you can, every time you think of that like you're stitching the energy together. So every time you blow it out or you snuff it out, that's another thing you'll hear. Some people will say not to blow out a candle because then you're like blowing out your intention. Some people say you have to snuff it out. I've blown out lots of candles and still manifested amazing things. So I don't know, but just think of that idea like you're stitching it together each time, back together. So Nick says my mom found it at a tax sale. Christina, I have a small altar space in my kitchen, just enough to remind me and also simple enough to keep me focused. Yeah. Let's see here. Yes, Hannah, it is super cheap, right? But it's right out of Providence. So if you live anywhere else in the country, you'd probably have to get to Providence still and then fly over to Dublin. But yeah, it was $200. And then I was looking at like houses to rent. And you can rent a house cheaper there for 2 weeks, a nice one. Then you can rent anything here for even a week. And I was like, we're going to Ireland all the freaking time. So Kimberly leaves my space up and change with the seasons. Karen updates with the seasons. Crystal says my abundance grid was amazing and I miss it. Maybe that's what to do again. Do it. Kim, my husband and I are talking about moving to Connecticut when our lease is up here. We live in upstate New York now. Oh, Kim, I'm on the shoreline of Connecticut. It's not much different than upstate New York, except that we have the ocean. And a really busy summers. Traffic here in the summer is a pain in the butt because people rent houses here from New York City. But, you know, I guess it depends where you want to live in Connecticut. But a lot of Connecticut is similar to upstate New York. Michelle swaps out her crystals all the time. Let's see here. Yes, balance. So Christina lights her 7-day candles and leaves it in the bathtub when I leave the house. Yeah, that's a hot trick for, we talked about this last week, for 7-day candles, is to leave them in your bathtub. Because if the glass gets too hot, it can explode. And so people will put them in their bathtub so that doesn't happen. Mary is Nick's mom. Jacob's great at finding little crystals and rocks in nature. He and Scarlett do have a loaded nature collection. Bert says we collect little pebbles at the beach with the granddaughter. Yes, those could be infused with love. Yeah, we have so many. I have back here, this is all beach stuff, and I have tons. We live right on the we live right by the ocean, so we have tons of beach stuff. So Karen says, like, you're hitting the pause button on the candle energy. Yeah. Let's see here. Brittany has super cheap flights to Iceland. I heard that's amazing too, Iceland. All right. Angie says, my husband would kill me if I left a candle lit. Mine would too. He would have some words for me. He'd be like, what are you doing? Anyway, so that's Sacred Spaces. And there is, let me see if I can just look at the questions that I gave you in the printable too. And then that'll be it for today. Got I'm meeting up with Christina Booz, who I think is watching. We're going to a thing this afternoon. I'm taking my kid to cooking class this morning. Okay, so some of the questions: what method might work best for your sacred space right now? So do what works for you, not everybody else. Don't feel like, oh, that person's space is so cool. I don't have a big statue of Medusa and I want one. You don't have to have all those things. I don't have those things. Create a list of tools or items that you already have on hand that you might want to use to create a sacred magical space right away. And so things you already have, natural items, herbs, candles. You can make stuff too. Like you can draw, if you're artistic, you could paint, you could print things out. You can draw pictures of different gods or goddesses or whatever. What purpose are you creating your sacred space with? What's the intention for it? How will you use it? So will you like take it outside and sit under the moon? Will you sit under the sunshine? Will you take it to, if you're like a nature spiritualist, tree rock person? Sometimes it wouldn't be weird to see me with my little altar sitting on a big rock in my backyard talking to the rock when no one's looking. So like, what are you going to use it for? How are you going to use it? Are you going to leave it in your house and sit with it? And yeah, like what, and then just think about what worked for you and what didn't. But the important thing about a sacred space is to spend time sitting with it, because if you just make it and leave it there, like I said, it's like saying that you're going to eat healthy today and then turning around and eating all these donuts. It doesn't really, just doing it isn't, you gotta like connect with it and think about it and like have a relationship with it. So, let's see here. Bram says you can designate a quartz to carry intent. Yep. Hi, Chris. We're talking sacred spaces, Chris. Monisha would love to go to Ireland. My last name is Irish and Scottish McFalls. Yeah. Stephanie, love talking to rocks and my plants. I can't keep any plants alive, but I love talking to the things outside that keep themselves alive, like the trees and the rocks, which are a totally different energy, but that's neither here nor there. All right then, so that's it for today. I will probably around midday when I'm in the car traveling, I will put our homework thread up. Keep on posting in those because I love to see them. And if anybody has any questions for me at all or wants to show your sacred space or anything, totally feel free to do that. Monisha says, I was gifted a large pink nerve plant, working it into my sacred space. Plants are really cool to use in sacred space because they have, you have like the earth, the air, because they make air. They have, you water them, you know, or like a vase of flowers. A vase of flowers, if they're like red and orange flowers, you know, that's like the colors of fire. And you have the air and the water and the earthiness. So like a vase of flowers, a plant, candles, those are kind of quick things to represent everything. So it's no shortage of ideas ever. So yeah. Alrighty guys. Alright, I hope you guys have a great rest of your day. I'll see you tomorrow. I think our time tomorrow is get back to 9:30 a.m. I think 9 or 9:30, and then Friday might be 9. So I'll see you tomorrow morning a little bit later, and we'll keep on keeping on. Sissy says, what's the email to get the printables resent? It's magic, MAGIC at thesistersenchanted.com. And yeah, and we will resend the email from today. If you wait till tomorrow's email, you'll have all the printables in that too. So anyway, all right, have a great day guys. Bye.